My story in politics begins about 8 years ago with the advent of the Tea Party movement. A lot of you were sitting in the same place I was, frustrated, angry, occasionally hurling a shoe at the television. And then this Tea Party thing happened. It felt like something was happening. It's really important in politics when a moment happens that you take advantage of that moment. And luckily, there were people who were smart enough to sense it, just grassroots activists, not professional political folks. And they decided in that moment to hold a Tea Party protest when nobody knew what it meant, a week later, all across the country. So literally, this is the very first Tea Party protest. Now, most people don't know about this protest, actually. It took place February 27th, 2009. I heard about the idea on the 21st. I did the appropriate thing for a guy who's been married for a very long time. I asked my wife's permission to participate. She's from Boston. She liked the idea of a Tea Party. So we held our event down in Sacramento at the state capitol. Meanwhile, around the country, 34 other people held these protests around the country. In California, as you know, is a lot like New York. It's not exactly a red state. So we went down to the state capitol not knowing what would happen. And it's my first political event ever. Literally, I'd never been involved in politics at all. And 150 people ultimately showed up at that. My first political event ever. Literally, I'd never been involved in politics at all. And 150 people ultimately showed up at that event. And I went and I talked to all of them. One, because it just made me feel good to know that I was not the only crazy person in California, right? There are at least 149 others. And two, because I just wanted to know why. I knew why I was there. I was there because I didn't know what else to do. It seemed like no matter who I voted for, no matter who was in office, Washington, D.C. got bigger and the citizen got smaller. And I felt cut off from the system, almost disenfranchised, even though I voted. And so I wanted to know if other people felt the way I did. And as I walked around the people there and I talked to every single one, I met people of every race, we had a big fight going on, a marriage and family fight. There were gay rights activists out there, there were marriage and family folks, there were conservatives and liberals out there. And everybody was just frustrated, and everybody said the same thing that I was saying. Don't know exactly why I'm here, except for I don't know what else to do. And then I started getting calls from the media because apparently I had become the California Tea Party coordinator, right? I had a title. And nobody gave me that title. There was no organization. It's just that I was the guy making the phone calls. So when the reporters started calling around and saying, well, who knows about this? People started saying, well, you should call this guy, Mark Meckler. So I start getting all this attention. So I start calling around the country to find out who else in the country has done this. That's how we know, ultimately, 35 events, about 39,000 people came out. Started networking all over the country, and what came out of that was a core group of 5 or 6 of us decided once was not enough. We didn't know what it meant, like what was exactly happening, what the Tea Party exactly was, but we knew we needed to continue it. So we decided to hold the Tea Party that most people know about, the big protest, which was April 15th, 2009. And we figured, like, if we could get 39,000 people to come out on 7 days' notice, if we could get 35 of these events around the country, maybe we could just, to use a term, have the audacity of hope that we could get 70 of them if we had 5 or 6 weeks' notice. So we chose April 15th, 2009. Look, people are mad on tax day already. It seemed like a good day. The most miraculous thing happened, which was in my office, we got a call from Neil Cavuto's producer, which I was absolutely certain was a crank phone call, because why would Neil Cavuto call us? And luckily my wife took it more seriously, called him up, and Neil wanted to come to California to cover the protest. And Sean Hannity had called our Atlanta organizers, and he wanted to go to Atlanta, and Greta Van Susteren was going to go to D.C., and you had Glenn Beck somehow fittingly wanted to go to the Alamo, right? So that caused the thing, as you can imagine, to go crazy, because Fox did something that no other network was doing, which is they covered it as news. And it was indeed news. There was an uprising taking place across America. The other networks weren't covering it, and Fox was willing to cover it. The short version of a long story is it turned my life completely upside down. We ultimately had 20,000 people show up in Sacramento. It was the largest protest in the history of the California State Capitol. They closed the streets for several blocks around the Capitol. It was a completely amazing experience. And the same thing happened all over the country. In Atlanta, they had 25,000 people. In D.C., I think they had 8,000 people. The most amazing thing to me were in small towns where 5 or 6 or 7,000 people lived. They had 1,500 or 2,000 people come out all across the country. And when we calculated it, we called around, we tried to double verify the attendees at every event. We came up with a number of about 1.2 million people came out on that day in April of 2009. Now that's extraordinary. Did any of you go to the protests in New York? Is there anybody here that was? Thank you guys for coming out. You guys give yourselves a hand. You guys have been early enough.
Sign the petition at cosaction.com and get as many of your friends and family to do the same. With your full address, your state legislators will know that you really are their constituents in their district. Our success depends on you, so we're inviting you to be part of history. Let's invoke the constitutional solution that's as big as the problem.